is Megan Penley Pickett from the Heartland Institute. One second, just trying to manage some of this. So this is Megan Penley Pickett from the Heartland Institute. I will be your host this evening for our February Parents' Night. It is just at the top of the hour right now. We're going to give people just another minute or so to join us, and then we are going to jump in. Just wanted you to know that you are in the right spot with me this evening, and I will be right back with you in just all right, everyone. Well, we are going to get started for this evening. And again, my name is Megan Penley Pickett. I work with Heartland in several different ways. For any of you who have joined us on some previous webinars, I'm seeing some familiar icons and names on there. You have seen me before. I'm primarily doing a lot of these trainings, both with our parents and consultants, as well as our coaches. And but I also am a coach myself, so that's the perspective that I am bringing to the Parents' Night presentations. So a little bit of how we're going to spend our time together this evening is I have a PowerPoint presentation which I will share with you. What we're going to focus on tonight is what to do once you have been accepted into a college or university. Now, it makes sense that that would obviously be for our students who are finishing up their gap year, who are finishing up their 12th grade year, their senior year. But for any of you who are working with our younger students who are the parents of, or maybe younger students yourselves, these are things to start thinking about so you can kind of get prepared, so you kind of know what's coming down the road. Some of the biggest questions we have from our students, regardless of their age, really is what can I expect and how should I plan for what's going to be happening? And the truth is we just don't know what we don't know. So if you are a younger student, or again, on the support team for a younger student, start thinking about this and how can I prepare for this, or kind of knowing what's coming around the bend. It's a little bit of that GPS, right? In 3.7 miles, in 2.9 years, you're going to need to think about your financial aid options. So we're going to walk through that with you this evening. It's just me on tonight. We have some other things going on for our coaches, so they may be kind of coming in and out, but one was unable to join me for the program this evening. So the way that we will handle questions is I will get through the presentation. Takes about 20 to 30 minutes, give or take, my soapboxing, if you will, tonight. But then we will leave time for questions at the end. You can either pop that into the written chat area, or because we are with a smaller, more intimate group this evening, it may make a little bit more sense time-wise, and to make sure that everyone is hearing your question and the answer is to go ahead and unmute yourself and be able to ask that question. So I can field that. That's probably going to be the easiest ways, but sometimes people really don't enjoy hearing themselves or seeing themselves on screen. I will certainly take my video down very shortly. But if you're uncomfortable with that, feel free to put that in the chat line. So with that being said, we are going to jump into our Parents' Night presentation. Hold on one second. My computer buttons are being a little finicky tonight. Okay. And I apologize, I tend to drink a lot of water when I present. So if you hear kind of strange pauses, that is what's going on for me. Okay, so again, we are really focusing on what to do once you're accepted to a school. A school is a college or a university, a 4-year institution, a 2-year granting community college or junior college, whatever that might look like. We potentially are going to have some folks who are thinking about graduate school. Most of these things are going to apply. I'm going to present it from the lens of, you know, your traditional, if you will, college or university. But again, it's the same steps are going to be in place. And so the areas of focus for our webinar this evening really are looking at those financial aid options. We've worked with you and you all have done quite a bit. And again, if you're our younger students, you're starting to think about what are these how am I going to maximize my financial aid offers? How am I going to apply for scholarships? How am I going to get aid? All of those things, federal aid. So we're at the point now where we're being accepted into a school. So we're going to check through those financial aid options. We're going to talk through a little bit of how to read those awards. How does housing play into your financial aid? How to compare those financial aid packages from specific colleges or universities. How to negotiate and how to utilize your coach in that capacity. How to make those decisions and then deadlines that you're going to need to keep up with. So again, you've been accepted. And at this point in the year, really in February, a lot of our students have found out that they have been accepted into programs and some of them have not. I do not anymore, but I used to work in admissions at a university out here in Colorado, and they actually just finalized yesterday, they finalized their regular decision group of students. And so a lot of our students also have not found out about that. So if anybody's on here thinking, oh my gosh, I haven't found out yet, and I really need to know, or I'm behind the 8 ball, you're not. But this is just something to think about as those acceptances start rolling in. So once you have received word that you are accepted to a school, either via email or a letter in the mail or both, you're going to want to log into that account. Now, I would be surprised if any of you out there did not create any account that was online. If that for some reason is the case, then you're going to then want to call the admissions office or the financial aid office to walk through this. But given that this day and age, I would just be so surprised if there was not an online account that you have completed and set up. So you want to check the status of your financial aid. Have they received any documentation that they require? Or all of the boxes checked? You're going to really, really want to make sure that you are crossing your T's and dotting your I's. Just go through, don't go through this cursory, don't go through this quickly, take your time, go through, because sometimes it's one line that's on there that says you need to click here or finish a counseling session or contact or do something, right? So you don't want to not be eligible for financial aid because you kind of whipped through this and didn't pay attention. So make sure you log into that account and check the status of your financial aid. This would be the point where you're going to accept any and all aid from the school. Now, I put this in here, and it's a little bit of jumping the gun because you're going to want to, again, read that fine print. If this is the time for you to accept the aid without necessarily accepting admission, sometimes portals are set up that you have to click, yes, I accept this to get to the next step. So again, you're going to want to read through that really carefully. And if you have any questions, you're going to want to contact that specific school and say, hey, what am I committing to if I click yes here? You're also then going to want to check on your federal, state, and private loans. Those are all going to be in different spots. But again, you're going to want to make sure that you are completing any missing documentation. You're being aware of any documentation that might be missing. Really just finalizing all of the pieces, making sure that that's all in there. So come March, April, May, you're not saying, gosh, I found out that I was accepted, but I haven't heard about financial aid. Oh, well, you know, it's because this isn't done. So you want to get that done sooner rather than later. Sometimes, specifically for your federal aid, for your FAFSA is really what that is referring to. You're going to need to complete loan counseling and send that verification to the school through the federal aid, and oftentimes through some of the loans that exist out there. There's a way to, once you finalize that counseling session, and that really focuses on preparing you to the best of their ability to say, do you know what you're getting into when you're taking on these loans, when you're taking out this aid? Now that is specifically for anything that's going to need to be paid back. You're going to have to say, yes, I do understand this is not free money. And if I, stop out of school for any reason, within 6 months, typically, I'm going to have to start repaying that. Sometimes it's earlier, sometimes it's later, but they really want to make sure on the front end that you know what you are agreeing to when you are taking that money. And then the school wants to know that you have completed those pieces so they can then move forward as well. So you're not showing up in their office middle of your freshman year or in sophomore, you're saying, I didn't know I was going to have to pay this back, right? So they want to make sure that you're doing that. Now this last bullet point, I'm going to talk about it a little bit later as well. Let's say that you've taken out a loan, and I'm just going to make up a number, but you're eligible for a loan of $50,000, right? You are figuring out that you probably only need an additional $10,000 to cover the gap of room and board, tuition, books, whatever the college cost is going to be. And we're going to talk about that in a few slides. But when you figure out exactly what you are going to need, you're going to want to request that specific amount that's within the options of your loan or within the parameters of your loan. You don't want to just carte blanche take out that $50,000 if you only need 10. The reason that you don't want to take out all that money is that you're going to have to pay that back if it is a loan. And so take that out on an as-needed basis. That money really is available to you throughout your, a year at a time. You're going to want to, kind of check back. You may need to reapply later on, but reapplying later on for a loan is going to be easier than accruing all of that interest on a much larger aid package than what you actually need. So when we're talking about financial aid, and any of you who have joined us for any of our previous webinars, we have talked in great detail about scholarships and funding and those types of things. But wanted to make sure that we gave a touch point on it this evening. So when we're reviewing our financial aid options and awards, it makes sense to you. So financial aid really can be provided in 4 different ways. Federal funds, this is really referring to the FAFSA, so that federal money. From the school itself, this can come in the form of scholarships. It can come in the form of merit grants, some specific ones that are to the school. Maybe it's named after a mascot or a prominent alumni. That is typically going to come with the acceptance letter or potentially a little bit later on, but you'll see that again in that online portal. Those private scholarships and grants are all of those pieces that you have applied for. The different scholarships that you receive through Heartland, the scholarship notifications, hey, you should apply for, is what you're going to receive from Heartland. Any grants that you've received, those types of things. And then again, loans, both private and federal. So the Stafford loan and the unsubsidized loan, as well as any private loans, maybe from a credit union or a lien against the mortgage or something along those lines. So this is really what we're talking about when we are reviewing financial aid and options. So here are 5 assumptions about financial aid awards that they're really warnings for all of you. They're really questions when you are looking at your financial aid package. You want to make sure that you're answering these questions and not just assuming. First and foremost, you do not want to assume. So that's really what I'm trying to say here. I'm taking the long way around, is don't assume that these 5 statements on the slide here are true. You're going to want to investigate and see what the reality is on them. The first assumption is that all components of the financial aid package are free money. And that simply is not true. Oftentimes, if you are looking at something from the school itself, sometimes there are scholarships, sometimes there are grants. You're going to want to make sure, you're going to want to find out if that's money that has to be paid back. You're going to want to find out if there's any requirements for that. Do you have to keep a certain GPA? What happens if you don't keep that GPA, or you change majors, or something along those stipulations? Excuse me. Some of our schools are going to allow students to take loans out from the school itself, potentially dependent upon how their endowment is set up. Again, you're going to want to see, what does that mean? When do you pay that money back? How do you pay that money back? Looking into all of those pieces. So again, don't just assume that all components of the package are free money. You also do not want to assume that your awards are renewable. This often means that, I'm just going to use the term presidential scholarship. And by that, that's a common phrase that is given out by schools specifically. It has nothing to do with our, with President Trump or with the president of a university or anything along those lines. They typically have something, the Dean Scholarship, the Presidential Scholarship. So when you receive those types of aid rewards, or awards, you're going to want to check to see if they are renewable. Is that only for the first year? Is that renewable for each year? Do you have to reapply for that? Does it automatically roll over? And I would say that this also applies to any scholarships or grants that you have. It may be a one-time deal. It may continue for a specified amount of time. It may continue until you are done with education. So you're going to want to look into that as you are looking at what not only does your first year cost, but what is your subsequent, sophomore through graduation years cost as well. And that can change based on if your rewards are awards are renewable or not. You also don't want to assume that the total that you see is actually what you'll pay. And we're going to get into this a little bit later when we start talking about the net cost of college. But you're going to want to really dig in and see what is the total cost of college. What is tuition? Yes, what is room and board if you are going to be on campus? Also, what are some other fees? There's often a technology fee, an activity fee. What are those pieces? And so you can really figure out what is the total cost of college going to be, so then you can figure out what, if any, financial gaps exist. The fourth assumption here is that the total cost will hold steady until graduation. That's simply not true. It could be true if you are signing something or they are giving you, let's just say you find the magical unicorn of colleges and tuition is $100. Let me tell you that doesn't really exist. But numbers aren't really my thing, so I'm going to use a number that makes sense to me tonight. So let's say that when you start college, your tuition is $100, right? That's what it's going to cost. Tuition increases between 3 and 5% on an annual basis, typically, on an average annual basis for colleges and universities. There are some colleges and universities that when they accept students, you will sign something or they will have a disclosure that says, this is the tuition that you will pay, this $100 for your entire time here. And other schools do not have that. They don't kind of have that grandfather clause, right? And so you're going to want to, again, think about the number of years that you are going to be there, not so that you change your mind about that school, but that you are not blindsided in your sophomore or junior year when there's a tuition increase, and what are we going to do about that, right? And so then the fifth and last assumption, and we're going to talk about this one a little bit later on as well, is we assume that we can't negotiate, that they say, here's your $5 scholarship, this is what you get, or here's your merit, and you can't go back to them. And that's simply not true. We're going to talk a few strategies a little bit later on and how to utilize Heartland and Heartland's coaches in being able to go back and negotiate in a respectful way, in a way that says, thank you so much. I really want to go to XYZ University. It's my top choice, but there's still a significant financial gap. Is there something else I can do? Is there more aid available? Are there scholarships I can apply for that I'm unaware of? You know, that type of thing. So we'll talk about that later. But again, we don't want you to assume that you can't negotiate, because that's simply not true. Something to think about with housing as it pertains to financial aid is, you know, if a lot of our students are thinking that they are going to remain at home, absolutely fine. A lot of our students really want to live on campus, also absolutely fine. But you want to double check to see if your financial aid can be applied to housing and other school related expenses, especially if you are looking at your private loans, your private scholarships and grants. Oftentimes those are going to have some pretty specific stipulations on how and when that can be used. So just dig into those and see how it can be used. You know, hey, I got a $5,000 scholarship, and if it doesn't go towards housing, how are you going to utilize that money so you can best use that and you're not then incurring more costs, right? So you want to see if, you know, dependent upon what the scholarship, grant, aid is, are you going to be required to live on campus? Can you live off campus and then utilize those funds? I worked at a university where we would give what we called the presidential scholarship to students, not every student, but a lot of students. It was the aid that we gave them in the form of $3,000 as long as they lived in on-campus housing. When and if they chose to move off campus, that $3,000, they lost that money in essence. It could not be applied to off-campus housing living. And so in junior year, when our students typically then moved off campus, they would say, hey, I didn't know that we couldn't apply this money, or where did my scholarship go? So we had to remind them, and that's not a fun conversation. It's not a fun conversation for parents to have, for financial aid offices, for students. So we want you to start thinking about those things early on. Again, if you're looking at that renewable aid, is it renewable, again, depending upon your living arrangement? How can that be applied? Sometimes you're going to have a scholarship or a grant that they are going to give you directly the money. And then that can be applied in any way that you see fit. It's your money. But there are some scholarships and grants, and specifically merits from schools themselves, that's not going to be able to be applied to off-campus housing. So you're going to just want to look at that. And it may be negligible. So, right, so this isn't to say you're going to only ever want to live on campus. That's not what I'm saying. We just want you to be prepared as you start thinking through how to use your aid, how to compare the different options that are coming up. You're going to want to start thinking down the line as well. And the last thing on this is that your FAFSA may be affected. So FAFSA being the amount of money that you were awarded, it may be affected if you indicated that you were going to live on campus and then you decided to live off. So when you were filling out FAFSA and you said, yep, I'm going to live on campus at Ball State University, right? That's where I went to school, so it feels safe to use that as an example. Yes, I'm going to live on campus at Ball State University. They are preparing my FAFSA and awarding me money based on not only the tuition, but also the on-campus living expenses. If I then, decide that I'm going to live off campus, that FAFSA money can change because in theory that those expenses look a little bit different. So just something to keep in mind as you're thinking about housing and financial aid, especially for those first couple of years of school. Excuse me, so you're going to want to start comparing financial aid packages from the various schools that you are being accepted into. There's a lot of factors that go into comparing schools. Here's where we're going to get into talking about the net cost. but it's also really, truly important to think about the schools that you truly want to attend. So in no way, shape, or form are we at Heartland or is Megan at this moment saying that your decisions of where you're going to go to school should be solely based on finances. I don't believe that that is true. And if and when you have worked with your Heartland coach up to this point, you have hopefully applied for schools that you really want to attend, right? So when you are getting these offers, when you are getting these acceptances, they are from schools that you could really see yourself attending. So it's just important to think that in no way, shape, or form, again, are we saying that finances are the only way or the only factor in making this decision. So when you're thinking about the financial aid packages that you are receiving along with your acceptances, the aid amounts are based on the cost of a specific school, and it's going to vary from school to school. So FAFSA is going to, again, once you accept that money, that's going to potentially vary a little bit, again, on campus, off campus, the cost of that school, that type of thing. Depending on if it's a public or a private, depending upon in which state it's located, the aid is going to look potentially different from the different schools. So you're going to then, kind of lay out what all of those aid packages are. So let's say you get $5,000 from school A and $20,000 from school B. It may turn out, right, that depending upon what the total cost of attendance, that net cost, that total cost, housing, room and board, tuition, all of the extra fees, the orientation fee, if there is one, all of these different things, that net cost for college A may be $15,000, and so out of pocket you're looking at 10, and college B, it could be a $50,000 school and they've given you 20,000, you're still looking at a $30,000 out of pocket. Now again, I hope you know that I am just making up numbers to prove a point here or to drive a point home. So just because one package offers $5,000 and another package offers $20,000 does not necessarily make that $20,000 a better bet. You're going to want to look at that net cost for each school. So once you have that net cost, you're going to subtract your aid amounts, any scholarships, grants, merit awards, those types of things outside of loans. We're keeping loans out of this particular first part of the equation. So take that net cost minus any aid that you are being given, and that's going to equal your out-of-pocket costs. So again, you're going to want to look at the net costs of each school and what those out-of-pocket costs are. And then you're going to want to look at, kind of determining that loan amount that you will need. We talked about this a few slides ago, that you're going to want to make a specific request of the loans that you were awarded. Again, if you do not need $50,000 in loans, do not take $50,000 in loans. If you need it, then take it if that's a good decision for you, but don't take everything that you have been awarded in loans, because you will be responsible for paying that money back. And here's where negotiation comes into play. And I really loved this picture because I have a 7 and a 5-year-old as of tomorrow morning. And this is what it feels like happens every night, right? Like, well, what about 3 more minutes? What about 7 more minutes? And luckily, they don't really have a very good grasp of time right now. So they can say 3 minutes, and I can say, what about 2 minutes? And they're like, yep, that sounds great, Mom. And so really what our job here at Heartland is, when you are going through the negotiation with admissions office, financial aid office, is to make sure that you do know what you are doing, what you are talking about. So you're not like, yes, I will take less. That sounds great. That's certainly not what we want for you. We want you to be smarter than my 5-year-old when it comes to this part of it. And you absolutely should negotiate. You absolutely should go back to the table and ask for what you are looking for. If once you have done that equation on the net cost minus the aid, right, and there's still a significant out of pocket, and you get to decide what is significant. Significant could be $1,000, significant could be $50,000, it could be more, it could be less, it could be anywhere in between. So you get to decide that and what is best for you and your family. And so you get to say, you know, there's ways to say, we are looking for X amount of dollars. This is what's going to make it possible for the student to attend school there. What can we do? The answer is always, always, always going to be no if you don't ask. So you need to ask. There's a lot of different ways to do that. We at Heartland utilize, it's somewhat of a form letter, but it gives us a template to be able to use with students and families, and we can help you personalize that, but it's what we call a reevaluation letter. It basically says, Dear XYZ College, you know, if it's writing it from the student's perspective, you know, XYZ University is my top choice. I want to go there for, you know, these succinct reasons. I'm very excited. I'm proud that I have been accepted, and I'm appreciative of the awards that I have been given. However, it still poses a unique and distressing financial gap for my family. What else can we do, right? I'm not reading this verbatim right now on here, but that's in essence what that is. So you can send in that letter. You can give a call to a financial aid officer, to maybe potentially the admissions office, and the admissions officer that you worked with specifically. You can send an email to those folks. You can create a personal appointment. If it's something that you're able to drop in, if you are potentially on a visit for accepted students, you can get on their calendar to have a personal appointment. So you can either present that reevaluation letter, you can bring it with you. This is to follow up on that reevaluation letter, so you get that personal attention, and see if there's any additional appeal documentation. Sometimes colleges and universities will say after a certain date, after March 15th, after April 1st, and again, I'm making up dates, we potentially will have more aid available, or the XYZ scholarship becomes available at that point. So if you ask them, they will then give you that information on when maybe the next round of aid is decided. They will potentially help you with some specific major scholarships, or you know, schools within a college or university scholarships, those types of things. But again, the answer is always no if you don't ask. Your coach can and will guide you through this process. They will help you with that reevaluation letter. They'll provide the template. They will, you know, provide suggestions once you fill that out, and help to navigate those conversations depending upon what your needs are. So again, you're going to want to ask these questions, especially if it's a place where you as the student or the parent of the student or the consultant on behalf of the student really know that that student will thrive. They will get the education that they were looking for in an environment that they are going to really, you know, be very successful in. You're going to want to do everything that you can to make that possible for you and your family, you know, without going into debt that is going to be detrimental to your family. So then we come to our final decision on deciding where to attend. And so you're going to, again, take into account all of the factors. Obviously, cost is a major factor, a high priority. It's not the only one, and you've heard me say that before, I know, and I know you've heard other coaches talk about that as well, is that cost. Any of these any of these factors in and of themselves do not make a full picture. Simply looking at the cost of a school, simply looking at your major, simply looking at fit, in and of themselves does not create a complete picture. So we really want to take into account all of the factors, with all of them somewhat having equal measure at that point. The coach can help you make a determination for what is best for you and your family. Again, looking at, sure, I can afford this and it's down the street, but I know I'm going to be miserable. Well, maybe we should have really thought about that when we were applying. But if cost is a major driving factor, what can we do to shorten the amount of time maybe that we're at that university, so then we can go to the university that we really believe we're going to thrive in? Or what are some other options that we have for financial aid? And so really kind of thinking through all of that, and looking both at the logical and then also that feeling side of things. And so again, your coach is a great partner in helping students and families decide on where they would like to accept. And so the final step is really those intent to enroll deadlines. And so there is a national deadline of May 1st. This is where students are required to, and we're talking about regular action. Anyone who has gone early decision, that has happened earlier on. That has happened in November. This is not the webinar for us to be talking about this, because that's a done deal for students. Really quickly, because we're not going to get into it too much tonight. Early decision is for our students who have decided, I really want to go to XYZ University. If they accept me, that's exactly where I will go. And so not every university offers that as an option, but if they do, and a student decides that they are willing to accept any offer that school gives them, they can go through the early decision process. And they typically are going to know probably at the end of November. By mid-December, typically students are going to have found out from early decision. And if students are given an acceptance into early decision, that's where they have decided to go. So if you have questions on that, contact your coach. You can contact me later on. If your student has decided to go early decision and they're going to be enrolling in fall of 2019, that is done for them at this point. So we're really talking about these national deadlines of students who have gone regular decision, regular action, which is the majority of our students. So it has that national deadline of May 1st, and you basically have three options. You can accept at that university, you can defer if they allow that, and most of them are going to. Some of them will allow you to defer up to 2 years. On standard, it's about a year that you can defer your enrollment, or you can decline your enrollment. Thank you, but no thank you. Your best option is to accept to a single institution. Dear Ball State University, I am pleased to accept your, and you may not even have to write a letter, right? You might just click in your online portal that says, yes, I want to go there. And if you choose to accept to a single institution, you need to let the other schools know that you then made this other decision of declining. And so typically there's going to be a checkbox on there as well. There's also some different ways if you're kind of 98% sure that you want to go with school A, and school B, you want to let them know, personally that you are not going to be going to school there, especially for our schools that are smaller, or that you have had a very good relationship with that admissions officer. Maybe they're regionally based. You may want to reach out and say, dear, I was an admissions officer, right? And I would get an email or a letter that said, dear Megan, thank you so much for your time. I have decided to attend XYZ University for these reasons. I thank you for your time. I wish you the very best, right? There's a professional way to do that, especially if you have built relationships with people. If you haven't, it's absolutely fine to click on the decline. It may ask you some follow-up questions, it may not. And then this third option, which is not our favorite, but I do see where it has a place. Whoops, hold on. I'm hoping my computer is not dying. Is that the second best option is to accept to 2 or 3 if you need more time past May 1st to make a decision. And so sometimes what this can, you'll have to excuse me as I'm looking for my cord. Something is going on with my computer and I don't want to lose all of you. So I am going to plug it in while I'm finishing up here. And so sometimes what can happen, oh, there we go, is that once you do accept, if you accept to a couple of different universities, sometimes you can use that as leverage. We do not always suggest that, but it is an option. If this is something that you are thinking of, I suggest that you do talk to your coach about the best way to use this leverage, not in any sneaky way, right? But to say, hey, XYZ, I've heard from ABC. This is the financial aid package that they have given me. can you match that? Or what, what can we do? And if it's before that May 1st deadline, you have a little bit of wiggle room. You do not have to accept. But if it's starting to come up against that time frame, and you may want to accept to more than one, either for those further conversations and not to lose your place, you absolutely can do that. Eventually, you will not be able to attend 2 or 3 universities at the same time, so you will need to contact them to decline. Again, some of those personal ways to be able to do that, there may be an online form. You'll just kind of have to see what is there. So you're going to want to work with your coach on the best way to approach that. And what you do need to know is that if you accept to any university that you then end up declining from for whatever reason, 9 times out of 10 you are going to lose your deposit, unless there's some tragedy that happens in life or some extenuating circumstances. If it was basically, I accepted to these 3 schools to see what I could do and see which type of packages I could get, I'm now going to choose ABC. Well, you have to tell you're going to lose your deposit on 1, 2, 3, as well as XYZ, or whichever one I didn't use in the beginning. So just kind of think that through. So it's oftentimes we don't want you to spend a lot of money on wasted deposits, but it's also not uncommon for students to accept to multiple universities as they are finalizing those packages. So we're coming to the end of our webinar this evening, and we'll open it up for questions. But really, at the end of the day, if you are making these decisions, congratulations, you got into college, right? You got into college, you were given financial aid options, whether it's loans, scholarships, or grants. Congratulations, be excited about that. All of you, whoever is on the support team for that student, whether it's the student themselves, their parents, families, guardians, consultants, coaches, everyone got them to that point. That takes a lot of work. This doesn't just happen overnight. And for those of you who are joining us, again, working with or you being yourself a younger student, these are all things that you can prepare for, and utilizing your coach through the Heartland program does help you prepare. So when you are sending in your application materials, when you are turning in your scholarship applications, you have worked with your coach to make sure that the materials that you are turning in are the materials that are the best that you can provide. So congratulations. So good job, human. High five on getting into college. So again, you're going to want to think through, reviewing what your options are, determine your priorities on making that decision of where you want to go to school, notifying those schools of your decision, and work with your coach. That's what we are here for. Excuse me, we are here to answer any of your questions. We are here to walk you through, offer our expertise, get other opinions from other coaches. That's one thing that if you haven't heard me say before, let me say it now, is that we as a coaching team truly work with one another to say, hey, I have a student who's experiencing this. Has anyone else experienced that? What would be your suggestions? So we currently have a team of 12 coaches that we work with. And so although the students get an individualized coach and work with that one individual on a regular basis, they basically have access to, via that individual coach, to the other members of that team to get that expertise. So when you have questions, when you're not sure of something, ask those questions. Don't assume. Don't fall into that trap of assuming, especially when it comes to something as important as your financial aid for school. So I'm going to jump out of here really quick and go to the questions. So get those ready. Remember that you are muted, so if you want to ask the question live, you'll have to unmute yourself. But at any point in time that if you have a question, feel free to send us an email. Here's our email. It's the HIFE-CPP@hife-usa.org. You can give us a call, 303-597-0197. We are open 8:30 to 5 Mountain Standard Time. We are located outside of Denver, Colorado. And there's some other information you can find on our website here. So without further ado, let's get into what questions you all might have. No questions. It was that clear. Financial aid options for college are that clear for everyone. But remember that if you do want to ask something live, you are going to need to unmute yourself. Just due to background noise, it makes it a little bit easier. So again, remembering that we have until that May 1st, and that rolls over from year to year on what that deadline is. That always remains the same. You may get something from colleges and universities that want you to accept early on. If it is a school that you know that you are going to go to, or you for some reason have gotten all of your financial aid packages and have done your reviewing and you're comparing, you absolutely can accept earlier than that May 1st. That May 1st is just, it makes that a little bit simpler for colleges and universities across the US to kind of know what numbers they are dealing with, what type of class they are looking at number-wise, which then helps their orientation folks, and it helps the different academic units and housing units and all of those different things to make sure that your student has what they need when they get on campus. So, so that is what that May 1st deadline certainly helps. Looks like we had a hand up and then it went down. So feel free to just unmute yourself and ask your question if you have one. I would love to hear it. Just a reminder for anyone who maybe there are consultants out there that are going to be hosting other events, things like that, or later this week, or you just really want to engage in this topic again, I will be presenting the same PowerPoint slide, the same presentation on Thursday of this week, February 28th at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So, and this particular one will also be recorded. So if there's anything that you are looking for, we can absolutely, please feel free to join us again. Looks like we do have one question that's on the chat line, and it's asking about the net cost minus aid. So basically the net cost is what the total cost of a college and university is going to be. So it's going to include things like your tuition, your room and board if you are on campus. Sometimes there's a transportation fee, a technology fee, an activity fee. Sometimes those are rolled into one and sometimes they are itemized. So you're really going to want to look at that, not only just look at tuition and or room and board. You're going to want to find out what all of those costs are. If that's not clear on their website, their admissions office will have that information. So feel free to give them a call and ask them questions. That's why they're there. And I have worked in a college or university for the last 15 years. I was in admissions. What's really interesting is that we get so hung up in, using our acronyms or just kind of making our own assumptions that families and students know what we're talking about when we refer to the XYZ fee or where you would find it, that we sometimes forget to give you all of the details. So it's your job and your right to ask those questions. So you're gonna wanna take that total cost of what the college or university is, and then minus any aid that you have gotten, not the loans yet. We're looking at any aid that you do not have to pay back, scholarship, federal money that you are being given, grants, merit from the university or college, all of those things put together. So the net minus any aid that you do not have to pay back gives you what your out-of-pocket cost is, and that may be then what you would have to subsidize with a loan. When you submit the FAFSA, can you change the on-off housing option after the FAFSA deadline? Yes, and technically the FAFSA deadline goes, I think it's June 30th of the year. So at that point, you are more likely than not going to have made your decision on whether you are going to live on or off campus. So you can do that. You can also work, let's just say that you accepted your FAFSA award and it was based on living on campus, you have decided to live off campus, you also at many places can work with your financial aid office on that campus to let them know, and they'll help you figure out how to notify FAFSA or if there is any change that's going to happen to your federal aid. So yes. Okay, great questions. I love the questions. I love to give the presentation. I love to give you what information I think or that we as coaches think is really necessary. But really when that rubber hits the road is when you all as parents, families, consultants, students, give us those questions and really, you know, help figure this out and operationalize it for yourself. So again, if you are working with or are a younger student, all of these things still apply. They may not apply to you in the next couple of months, and that's really a gift, right? To be able to start thinking about, okay, I will start getting financial aid at some point. And for those of you who are in the throes of this right now, let us know how this personally affects you. You know, we definitely want to take some of the anxiety out of it, and so much anxiety can come from not knowing. So there's a question on financial aid letter. The school offered a small loan. Are we able to negotiate for more loan? The answer is you can always ask. The loan granting or aid granting institution is the one that is going to be able to tell you yes or no. I guarantee the answer is no if you don't ask. And so I would definitely reach out to that school either via a reevaluation letter, maybe even send a simple email or give a phone call. If you were, you know, working with someone specific, and they would be able to walk you through, let you know if you are able to get a larger loan or if there is other aid that's available. But I would give them a call and find out, or again, send them a letter. Absolutely. Other questions or concerns for this evening? All right, well, I'm going to do my wrap up. If there's anybody who wants to sneak in a last one, we have a couple of minutes, but for those of you who have joined me before, I always love to give people back even just a couple of minutes of their day that they didn't know that they would get. So thank you all so very much for joining me this evening. I certainly hope that this was informative, gave you some food for thought. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out via email or give our office a call. Or again, you can join me again on Thursday night, February 28th at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Again, it'll be the same presentation. What really changes it up is when you all ask those questions and bring that rich material to life for us. So, well, without further ado, again, thank you all so very much. I hope you have a wonderful evening. And if I don't see you on Thursday, we will be doing our next monthly set of Parents' Night webinars next month on March 26th and March 28th. So we hope to see you then. Hope you all have a great evening. Thank you so very much. Bye-bye.